Welcome to the channel, everyone. Here I have a collection of high Alpine horror stories. This story is called Echoes of the Eiger's Wrath. In the heart of the Swiss Alps, where the grandeur of nature reigned supreme and the peaks pierced the heavens, stood the formidable Eiger, a mountain steeped in legend and shrouded in mystery. Its towering cliffs and icy slopes challenged even the most skilled climbers, daring them to conquer its treacherous north face. On a crisp morning in late spring, when the sun had just begun to paint the sky in hues of pink and gold, a team of intrepid climbers assembled at the foot of the Eiger. Among them was Alex, a seasoned mountaineer with a hunger for adventure and a thirst for the unknown. The air was crisp and clean, the scent of pine and snow filling their lungs as they gazed up at the towering cliffs that loomed overhead. The Eiger's north face stood before them like a monolith, its jagged edges cutting into the sky with an imposing presence. As they set out along the rugged trails that wound through the alpine meadows, the anticipation coursed through their veins. The path was lined with wildflowers, their vibrant colors standing out against the backdrop of the snow-capped peaks. But as they approached the base of the north face, a sense of foreboding washed over them, a feeling that they were being watched by unseen eyes. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a chill that seemed to seep into their bones. With hearts pounding and adrenaline coursing through their veins, the climbers began their ascent, their crampons biting into the ice as they scaled the vertical walls with precision and skill. Each movement was calculated, each foothold carefully chosen as they made their way ever higher. The ascent was grueling, the climbers pushing themselves to their limits as they fought against the unforgiving terrain. But with each step, they drew closer to their goal, their determination unwavering despite the challenges they faced. As they neared the summit, a sudden storm swept in from out of nowhere, engulfing them in a blinding whiteout and sending them scrambling for cover. Visibility was reduced to zero, the wind howling like a banshee as they struggled to find their way in the darkness. Lost amidst the swirling snow and ice, panic threatened to overwhelm them as they stumbled blindly through the storm. But just when it seemed that all hope was lost, they were visited by a vision, a lone figure standing atop the summit of the Eiger, its silhouette outlined against the stormy sky like a beacon of hope in the darkness. With renewed determination, the climbers set out once more, their spirits buoyed by the vision that had appeared to them in their darkest hour. And as they battled against the elements with every ounce of strength they possessed, they felt a sense of clarity and purpose wash over them, a sense of being part of something greater than themselves, a part of the mountain itself. Hours turned into days as they continued their ascent, their bodies pushed to the brink of exhaustion as they fought to reach the summit. But just when it seemed that they could go no further, they were greeted by a sight that took their breath away. The summit of the Eiger bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, stretching out before them like a promised land. With tears of joy streaming down their faces, the climbers embraced one another, their hearts full of gratitude and awe as they stood atop the pinnacle of the world. But as they gazed out over the breathtaking panorama that lay before them, they sensed that they were not alone on the summit of the Eiger. A chill wind swept down from the peaks, carrying with it a sense of unease that sent shivers down their spines. And as they turned to leave, they heard it, a faint whisper, echoing through the icy corridors of the mountain like a ghostly lament. The climbers exchanged uneasy glances, their hearts pounding in their chests as they hurried down the slopes, eager to escape the eerie presence that seemed to linger on the summit of the Eiger. But as they descended into the valley below, they knew that they would never forget the mysterious encounter that had left them shaken to their core. For amidst the grandeur of the Swiss Alps, there were secrets that even the bravest souls dared not uncover. Secrets that lay hidden in the shadowy depths of the mountains, waiting to be revealed to those who dared to seek them out. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape, the climbers knew that their adventure on the Eiger was far from over.
This story is called Lost in the Alpine Wilderness. Nestled deep within the Swiss Alps, surrounded by towering peaks and pristine snowfields, sat an old alpine lodge, its wooden facade weathered by years of harsh mountain winters. The lodge was a relic of a bygone era, a refuge for weary travelers seeking solace amidst the rugged beauty of the mountains. I arrived at the lodge one chilly evening in late autumn, drawn by the promise of solitude and adventure. As I stepped through the creaking door, the scent of pine and wood smoke greeted me, mingling with the crisp mountain air. The lodge was cozy and inviting, its stone hearth crackling with warmth as I settled into a worn leather armchair by the fire. But as the evening wore on and the shadows lengthened, a sense of unease settled over me like a heavy cloak. The air seemed to grow colder, and the soft murmur of voices drifted through the halls, though I knew I was alone in the lodge. I brushed off my unease as the product of an overactive imagination, attributing the strange sensations to the isolation of the mountain wilderness. But as the night deepened and the wind began to howl outside, I found myself unable to shake the feeling that I was not alone in the lodge. As I lay in bed, sleep eluding me, I heard it, a soft tapping at the window, like fingernails against glass. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest as I strained to listen. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, echoing through the empty halls of the lodge. With trembling hands, I rose from my bed and approached the window, the moon casting a pale light over the snow-covered landscape outside. And there, standing in the moonlight, was a figure, a woman, her long hair flowing in the wind, her eyes dark and hollow. I recoiled in horror, my breath catching in my throat as I stumbled backward. The figure seemed to beckon to me, her ethereal form swaying in the wind as she whispered words I could not understand. Terrified, I fled from the room, the echoes of her haunting melody following me down the corridors of the lodge. But no matter where I turned, I could not escape her presence, her ghostly form haunting me at every turn. As dawn broke over the mountains, I gathered my belongings and fled from the lodge, desperate to escape the specter that haunted its halls. But even as I left the mountains behind me, I could not shake the feeling that the woman's ghost still lingered, her mournful song echoing through the valleys for all eternity. To this day, I cannot forget the terror I experienced in that old Alpine lodge, nor can I shake the feeling that I left a part of myself behind in those haunted halls. And though I have tried to put the experience behind me, I know that some mysteries are not meant to be forgotten, and some ghosts are not meant to be laid to rest. As I sit here now, writing these words, I can still feel her presence lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment when she will once again emerge from the darkness to haunt my dreams. And though I may never return to that old Alpine lodge, I know that her memory will stay with me always, a reminder of the horrors that lurk in the depths of the mountains. With a shiver, I turned away from the window, leaving the lodge behind me. But as I stepped out into the cold mountain air, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching me from the darkness. And as I made my way down the mountain path, I couldn't help but glance back over my shoulder, half expecting to see the woman's ghost following me through the trees. I quickened my pace, my heart racing as I stumbled over the uneven terrain. The forest seemed to close in around me, the trees looming overhead like silent sentinels. And as I reached the edge of the forest and emerged into the open expanse of the mountainside, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. But just as I began to relax, a sudden gust of wind swept down from the peaks, sending a shiver down my spine. And as I glanced back over my shoulder one last time, I thought I saw a figure standing amidst the trees, a figure with long flowing hair and eyes as dark as midnight. With a gasp, I turned away and fled down the mountainside, the echoes of the woman's haunting melody following me through the wilderness. And though I eventually reached the safety of the valley below, I knew that I would never truly escape the memory of that fateful night in the old Alpine lodge. For some mysteries are not meant to be solved, and some ghosts are not meant to be laid to rest. And as I look back on my journey through the Swiss Alps, I can't help but wonder what other secrets lie hidden amidst the towering peaks and deep valleys of this ancient land. This story is called Blizzard's Embrace, Lost in the Swiss Alps. The Swiss Alps, a majestic yet unforgiving wilderness, stood as a daunting challenge for any alpine climber. Among these peaks, a group of seasoned mountaineers set out on a daring expedition, eager to conquer the formidable slopes and reach the summit of one of the tallest peaks in the range. Led by Jonas, an experienced guide with a weathered face and steely determination, the group consisted of 5 climbers. Sarah, a skilled rock climber with nerves of steel. Michael, a seasoned outdoorsman with a knack for navigation. Elena, an ambitious young climber eager to prove herself. And David, a quiet but determined adventurer. Their journey began with high spirits and anticipation, the crisp mountain air filling their lungs as they made their way along the rugged trails that wound through the Alpine wilderness. The sun shone brightly overhead, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain as they ascended higher and higher into the mountains. But as they reached the higher elevations, the weather took a sudden turn for the worse. Dark clouds rolled in from the west, obscuring the sun and plunging the mountains into shadow. A fierce wind whipped through the narrow valleys, carrying with it the promise of an approaching storm. Jonas, sensing the impending danger, urged the group to turn back and seek shelter before the storm hit. But their ambition got the better of them, and they pressed on, determined to reach the summit despite the worsening conditions. As they ascended higher into the mountains, the weather continued to deteriorate, the wind howling like a banshee as snow began to fall in thick, heavy flakes. Visibility dwindled to almost nothing, the whiteout conditions making it impossible to see more than a few feet in front of them. With each step, the snow grew deeper, threatening to swallow them whole as they struggled to find their way through the blinding storm. Panic began to set in as they realized they were hopelessly lost, their compasses and GPS devices rendered useless by the ferocity of the weather. Hours turned into days as they wandered blindly through the mountains, their supplies dwindling with each passing hour. The biting cold gnawed at their bones, and hunger and exhaustion gnawed at their spirits as they fought to survive in the unforgiving wilderness. But just when it seemed that all hope was lost, they stumbled upon a small cave nestled amidst the rocks, its entrance partially obscured by a thick curtain of ice. With no other options available to them, they sought refuge within its icy embrace, huddling together for warmth as the storm raged on outside. Inside the cave, the air was frigid and still, the only sound the soft patter of snow against the rocky walls. They huddled together for warmth, their breath forming clouds of vapor in the freezing air as they waited for the storm to pass. But as the hours turned into days, and the storm showed no signs of abating, their situation grew increasingly desperate. Their food and water supplies had run out, and the bitter cold threatened to freeze them to the bone as they huddled together for warmth. With no other options left to them, they made the decision to venture out into the storm once more, hoping against hope that they would find help before it was too late. With Jonas leading the way, they emerged from the cave into the swirling snow, their hearts heavy with fear and uncertainty. For hours they trudged through the waist-deep snow, their strength waning with each step as they struggled to keep moving forward. But just when it seemed that they could go no further, they heard it. A faint sound echoing through the mountains like a beacon of hope in the darkness. With renewed determination, they followed the sound, their hearts pounding in their chests as they stumbled through the snow. And as they rounded a bend in the trail, they saw it, a rescue helicopter hovering overhead, its searchlights piercing the darkness as it descended to rescue them from their icy prison. With tears of relief streaming down their faces, they climbed aboard the helicopter, their bodies numb with cold and exhaustion as they were airlifted to safety. And as they looked out the window at the snow-covered landscape below, they knew that they had survived against all odds, their indomitable spirit and sheer determination carrying them through the darkest of nights. But as they flew away from the mountains, leaving behind the frozen wilderness that had nearly claimed their lives, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had left a part of themselves behind amidst the icy peaks and deep valleys of the Swiss Alps. And though they would never forget the terror they experienced in those frozen wastes, they knew that they would always carry with them the lessons they had learned and the bonds they had forged in the face of adversity. This story is called Shadows of the Wild. The wilderness of Alaska, vast and untamed, harbored secrets within its ancient forests and rugged mountains. It was a land where danger lurked around every corner, where the line between predator and prey blurred in the shadows. And for a group of adventurers venturing into its depths, they would soon discover that, in the heart of the wilderness, survival was a constant battle against the elements and the creatures that roamed the land. The group, consisting of 4 friends, Mark, Sarah, Jake, and Emily, embarked on a backpacking trip deep into the Alaskan wilderness, seeking adventure and escape from the pressures of modern life. Armed with tents, supplies, and a sense of excitement, they set out into the vast expanse of the wilderness, eager to explore its secrets. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the air grew colder and the shadows grew longer, casting an eerie pall over the landscape. The towering trees loomed overhead like silent sentinels, their branches swaying in the breeze as if whispering secrets to one another. But as night fell and the darkness enveloped the forest, a sense of unease settled over the group. The rustle of leaves and the snap of twigs echoed through the trees, sending shivers down their spines as they huddled around the campfire for warmth and companionship. Suddenly, a low growl pierced the stillness of the night, causing the group to freeze in fear. They exchanged nervous glances, their hearts pounding in their chests as they strained to listen for any sign of danger. And then it came. A massive grizzly bear burst from the shadows, its fur matted and its eyes blazing with hunger. It towered over them like a force of nature, its growls reverberating through the forest as it advanced on the campsite. Panic swept through the group as they scrambled to their feet, their minds racing with fear and adrenaline. Mark grabbed a nearby stick, brandishing it like a weapon as he stood between the bear and his friends, his heart pounding in his chest. But the bear was relentless, its massive claws slashing through the air as it lunged at the group with ferocious intent. Sarah let out a piercing scream as she stumbled backward, her foot catching on a root as she fell to the ground. In an instant, the bear was upon her, its jaws snapping shut with a sickening crunch as it sank its teeth into her flesh. Her screams echoed through the forest, a desperate cry for help that went unanswered in the vast expanse of the wilderness. The remaining members of the group watched in horror as the bear dragged Sarah into the darkness, her cries fading into the night as she disappeared from view. They were frozen in place, paralyzed by fear and shock as they struggled to comprehend the brutality of the attack. But there was no time to mourn their friend, no time to dwell on the horrors they had witnessed. They knew that they were next, that the bear would not rest until it had claimed them all as its prey. With trembling hands and racing hearts, they gathered their belongings and fled into the night, the sounds of the forest echoing around them like a symphony of terror. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs gave out beneath them, driven by the primal instinct to survive at any cost. And as they stumbled out of the wilderness, battered and broken but alive, they knew that they would never forget the horrors they had witnessed in the heart of the Alaskan wilderness. They knew that the shadows of the wild would haunt their nightmares for years to come, a grim reminder of the dangers that lurked beyond the safety of civilization. But amidst the terror and the trauma, they also carried with them a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life and the strength of the human spirit. And though they would never be the same again, they knew that they had survived against all odds, emerging from the darkness as survivors of the shadows of the wild.